Hello, it's Cara Riley here, and you're not going to believe where I am today. I'm outside of Coors Field in downtown Denver, Colorado, in a loft, coming to you live on our landscape photography show where we're sharing tips and tools on how to improve the odds of a better photo shoot. And so each one of us will introduce ourselves. You can find me on the web in the Cosmic Cow Pie, cosmiccowpie.com. Our other guests will have their name and their website where you can reach them in their lower third. And just a tip, if you are doing a hangout on air and you're doing it from your business page, you will not be able to use your lower third. It's only when you're using your personal page. So what I do is small business and real estate consulting. I'm an aspiring photographer, and I am one of the curators for the landscape photography daily theme page, along with Bridges Around the World and Photo Tour Global Directory. So I'm going to introduce Margaret Tompkins, who was the founder of this great project, and she's going to tell you a little bit about herself too.
Hi everyone, I'm Margaret Tompkins. Really a pleasure to be here this evening. Looking forward to a wonderful show and sharing some of our ideas and things that you might consider when you head out for your next photo shoot. I'm retired happily and an amateur photographer, so I love to go out there and shoot photographs, and especially landscapes, which is why I'm so involved with the landscape photography theme, and also work on the landscape photography community. So it's just glad to be here and glad you could join us tonight.
Thank you, Margaret. We certainly appreciate all the love, and there's no other word to describe what you have done for photography around the world on Google+. Because
My
we were
pleasure.
watching Narnia the other day, and I'm like, I see those pictures on landscape photography every single day, and that is such a cool thing, and that's all because of you, Margaret.
Thanks.
Now we're going to introduce Jim from Phoenix.
Well, thanks, Cara. Yeah, I consider myself to be a serious amateur photographer. You'll see my work mostly landscapes, color and black and white on Google+, Jim Warthman, and also you can visit my website, which is listed in the lower third. And like Cara said, I'm based in Phoenix, so most of my work, not all, will be Southwest U.S. Desert landscapes. And I am fortunate to be a curator in the landscape photography theme and also moderator in the landscape photography community.
So, well, thank you both, and we may have another surprise guest. We'll just see how things go as we progress. And today we really are going to be talking about, this is episode number 2, we are going to be talking about planning for your photo shoot. In the first episode, if you missed it, you can go back and find it on the Landscape Photography Show page. We talked about planning for the light, whether it was sunrise, sunset, or capturing in the middle of the day. So that was kind of a fun show. So now we're going to start at the beginning. What are the logistics when you think you're going to go out on a photo shoot? What are some of the things that you need to do and think about before just putting that camera in the car and going? And Margaret's going to give us a summary of some of the things that have really worked well for her.
Thanks, Cara, very much. want to focus a little bit on some of the logistics when you go out shooting. You want to make sure that when you arrive at that perfect destination, whether it's a 20-minute drive from your house or you've flown 10,000 miles, you want to make sure that you have everything that you need to capture the shot that you dreamed of capturing. So we'll touch a little bit on some of those ideas. I'm going to see if I can share the screen here.
You got it, Margaret. We see
I got it? Okay,
Yes.
great. This is up at the Grand Canyon, the South Rim, and I just want to sort of get you in the mood of what you're thinking about when you go there. You want to make sure that you have all the tools that you need. I was one time going to an arboretum that is probably about an hour's drive from my house. They had some wonderful fountains and waterfalls, all man-made, but very beautiful and wonderfully landscaped places, and just some wonderful opportunities to get some of that soft water with long exposures. So I threw in my bag and I packed all my dark lenses and the filters. Was going to go out and capture those, and it didn't dawn on me until I opened the trunk of my car when I got there that I didn't have my tripod with me. So that kind of put an end to those long exposures, and I wanted to smash something, but the only thing I had was my camera, and I didn't dare do that. But it really taught me a valuable lesson, and one that I have stuck to forever since then, and that is I start out by making a list. Every time I take a photography trip, whether it's to that arboretum or I fly someplace to the Grand Canyon, wherever it might be, I make a list of everything that I want to take with me. And this is something that's evolved over time. So I'd like to share this with you. There is a website, and you can Google this as well. Just Google packing list and this will come right up. A wonderful site where you can input some of your parameters for taking a trip. Are you flying or driving? What kind of suitcases do you have and how you like to travel? So this will give you an idea of some things to think about, and make a list. Literally write it down. It's best if you put it on your computer and then you just print it out when you need it. And what you want to do is make sure that you've got every little thing that's in your camera bag is on this list. And then as you get ready to depart for a trip, you check things off. So as you load them in the car or you've got them packed in the suitcase, whatever your method is, and you will make sure then that you will arrive with everything that you need. You don't want to get to the destination to take your long exposures and find that you don't have your tripod. Also, you want to make sure that you've got that nice lens treatment or dust removers that you want to have. And anymore, I add my driver's license and passport to that. I plan all the family trips that we take, and the last thing I want to do is get to an airport and find that my sister or someone can't get on the plane because they don't have their driver's license. So anymore, I make sure that that's on the list as well. And I use these little rings. I keep forgetting what they call these things. Jim, what are they called?
Carabiners?
Yeah,
Carabiners,
carabiner.
yeah, carabiner. They use them in rock climbing and ropes, and these are just the little itty-bitty ones. You can see that they're quite small, but they are incredibly useful for working with camera equipment. There you see one with a luggage tag. So I use them for everything. And one thing that you can do is take your camera bag and with one of these little hooks, just hook it to the bottom of your tripod. So you have your bag hanging there. Now this does a couple of good things for you. It gives you an extra 20 or 30 pounds of weight right at the center point of your tripod to help anchor it. So it gives you some wonderful stability, and that can be essential if you're in windy situations. There will be far less movement of your camera. And it does something else too. In some places in the wide open spaces, they're incredibly crowded, and you have lots of people surrounding you trying to get that perfect landscape shot as well. And you don't want someone reaching their hand into your camera bag and maybe making off with one of your favorite very expensive lenses. So this gives you the ability to keep your bag with your equipment right within your space, that tripod space. So it's an incredibly useful tool to use those little rings. And this is one particular shot. This is Mather Point at the Grand Canyon, and I was here at one point, and this is an incredibly popular place. The buses will unload visitors there. There's probably about a half-mile stretch there that you can walk along the rim of the canyon and just have these marvelous shots, both for sunrise and sunset. It's incredibly good. The parking lot is within yards of the rim, so there's no strenuous hiking of any kind. And there may be 5,000 or 6,000 people there at one time to view this, so it's very crowded. I was there at one time, and this really scruffy looking guy kind of starts setting up next to me, and he had a really nice tripod, but what he was carrying, he had two bags. One was one of those Army surplus duffel bags, looked like it was at least 50 years old, and the other was a diaper bag that was also very worn and kind of torn at the edges. And I was really kind of uncomfortable with this kind of seedy looking guy and this seedy looking bags that he was carrying. He just didn't look like a photographer at all. And then he started setting up his equipment, and I had to laugh because when he opened up that diaper bag, there was easily $20,000 worth of equipment in that diaper bag. So I just had to laugh, and I commented on his bag. And he said he had lost one time some equipment in an airport, some very expensive equipment, and since then he had started carrying this old duffel bag and also the diaper bag, and that no one had touched his equipment since then. So it was kind of a lesson I learned that you want to make sure that you're not an open target for theft, whether it's at the airport or taking a shot. Let's face it, when you're taking a shot of the Grand Canyon and you're focused on your f-stop and your white balance and getting that perfect composition that you want, you are focused on that 100%, and you don't want to have to be focused on someone coming along and stealing from you. So it's good to keep those things in mind. So that's just a little bit about logistics that I wanted to share with you this evening. And Cara, I'll turn it back to you.
Oh, that's great, Margaret. It's so interesting that you are sharing my backyard. Well, kind of not really Jim's, but I live like 45 minutes from the Grand Canyon, and when I share about some of mine, it's a great place to meet people. And I saw on a couple of your threads, Margaret, where people we're wanting to do a Grand Canyon walk. So trust me, if you are coming to the Grand Canyon, I live in Williams and would love to get a morning or a sunset shot with anybody coming. So thank you, Margaret. Those were excellent tips.
Great.
And
Margaret?
that link I think is important. Yeah, Jim.
Yeah, I gotta say, I like your comment about hanging your bag under your tripod. Well, assuming you have your tripod with you. But
Yeah.
I've also been, shooting sunrise at Mather, and at the Grand Canyon, and I show up typically real early and maybe get some star trails before even the blue hour really starts, and there'd be one or two of us down there. And one occasion in particular, I turned around, when it was getting really close to sunrise, and the entire viewpoint was just packed with people, right. Just shoulder to shoulder almost, and you get so caught up in what you're shooting and composing and so forth that it really is easy to lose track of your equipment. So hanging it under the tripod would be a great idea.
Well, great. Thanks for adding that. And now Jim has some really exciting information about some software that can help when you are planning the shoot, and how you can implement that, a tip, a trick, and a tool all at once. So Jim, thank you.
Thanks, Cara. Yeah, I think everybody would agree that the most important thing for a photographer is the light, and for landscape photographers, that means the sun and sometimes the moon, either as a source of light or even part of the composition. And a lot of times we go shooting spontaneously, grab our gear and go find a nice spot and shoot without doing a lot of advanced planning. But since this episode is about planning, I'm going to talk about times where, like Margaret said, you maybe spent a lot of money and gone on a long trip, and you really have one shot at capturing something, and so you often would be thinking about things like, well, where I'm going, when is the sunrise or the sunset? For that matter, when is the moonrise or the moonset? What direction would the light be coming from? And what will that angle of the light be doing for shadows and textures? And let me share the screen and I'll show you just a couple examples of what I mean. So here's an example that was taken one December at Horseshoe Bend outside of Page, Arizona, near Lake Powell. That's the Colorado River. And you might be surprised to learn that this was shot at 11:30 at night under the light of a full moon. And in setting this up, I needed to be concerned about things like, when
falling.
Sorry?
Falling.
Oh, yeah, falling. Well, there is that. Yeah, you haven't been here. Yeah, it gets real windy, and it's a very steep drop-off right pretty much where I was standing. So, yeah, but you want to wonder, where's the light going to be coming from, and how is it going to illuminate the formation? Because I didn't want any real severe shadows, and I wanted the moon up high enough. So understanding about where the sun and the moon are going to be can really assist in setting up for the shot. And this, by the way, was a 30-second exposure. Another example, and this is just east of Phoenix, Four Peaks in Arizona. And here...
You need to click the slide. There you go.
Okay. So here, I wanted to be sure that I was going to be able to catch this full moon rising up over the peak. And so, again, use tools to kind of predict where the moon would be rising and when I needed to be on location to do the shot. One more, and this also was shot one December when there was a blue moon in Monument Valley. Well, not just in Monument Valley, but the blue moon was the second full moon of the month. And there was a lot of planning that went into this shot. And again, where did I need to be standing in Monument Valley in order to capture the moon in that position? So that's where a tool called the photographer's ephemeris comes in. And we call it TPE for short. And what TPE does is it gives you a way to look at rise and set times for the sun and the moon, but a lot of tools will do that. You know, there are online tools and apps and so forth that will give you times, and some of them will even give you an angle of bearing, which direction to be looking for the rise and the set. But TPE is really kind of like a Swiss Army knife of these kinds of tools. And I'll show it to you in just a moment, but TPE runs on a number of platforms, Mac, Windows, Android, iPhone, iPad, and so forth. So oh, and I will say the Mac and Windows version's free, so you can download it at no cost. Now here's TPE. You can see that it starts out with a map view, and we're looking at Monument Valley. It uses Google Maps, although the mobile version has a broader choice of maps. But here, with Google Maps, you can look at satellite view and so forth. I prefer the terrain view because it shows the terrain that you're going to be shooting around, which is often relevant. And down in the lower left, you'll see a map key, and it shows that the yellow and orange lines are the directions that you need to be looking at sunrise and sunset. That's the direction where the sun's going to rise and set. The blue lines are the same kind of information for the moon. So you can see that the moon was rising almost due east on, well, today. With this control, I can switch dates, and because I looked at this earlier, I'm going to go to the 27th, and notice, and that was Sunday, notice as I change the day, the angle where the moon's going to rise also changes, just like you would expect. Okay. Also, there's a calendar-style interface if you want to pick a date from the calendar instead of just scrolling one day at a time. Now, I'm going to go to the Details tab, which shows quite a lot of information about the one day I've selected. And I'm also going to zoom in a bit and realign the map. So now what you're seeing is the pin, the red pin, indicates my position, which happened to be up near the visitor center parking lot. And you can see the blue line right now is kind of going past the one mitten. And that's where the moon's going to rise on the 27th. But on the right-hand side, you can see the rise and set times and angles and, you know, when civil, nautical, and astronomical twilight are going to happen. But what's really neat is this slider. So right now, this slider lets me select a time of day, and it's set pretty much to sunrise. But as I move it to the right, you can see an extra line starting to sweep across, and that's the angle of the sun at different times of the day. So if I set it to noon or thereabouts, I got it. Now you can see that the sun is not quite due south. It's just a little east of south. But again, if you're planning a trip and you know you want to be somewhere at a certain time, this is just a wonderful way to visualize where the sun's going to be. Now, as I move this slider over to sunset, you're going to see another line come out from the moonrise time. And so over here you see the dark blue line is the angle where the moon rises, and this thin line now shows you the angle of the moon. Now what I'm going to do, since I'm planning this shoot, is I want the moon right over the east mitten. And you can see I'm kind of hovering a little bit, and I've found it. Now what that tells me is on this day, which was 2 days ago, if I'm standing at this exact point on the rim at 7:30, 1930, the moon's going to be right over the mitten. And I think that's a pretty handy tool. But wait, there's more. I'm going to show you one more thing. So this little gray dot, they call it the geodetic indicator. I can drag that over to different parts of the terrain, and it'll tell me the elevation. So I dragged it over the mitten, and down in this window on the right side, you can see that the change in elevation from where I'm standing to where I've positioned this marker is 33 feet. So the top of the mitten is only 33 feet higher than me. And also, it shows you it's a 0.1 degree apparent change. Why that's important is at this time, the moon itself is 9.5 degrees above the horizon. So those two things taken together will tell you that at 7:30, the moon is, you know, about 8.5 or a little over 9 degrees above the mitten. And here, it may not be such a big deal, but if you have a really tall mountain range in front of you, this can be a very, very useful feature. Okay? So I think that's what I wanted to show you. You can find TPE, the links will be in the show notes, but you can find it at photoephemeris.com, and it's a really great website. They have a lot of tutorials. They also have an ebook for sale that goes into a whole bunch of detail on not only the photographer's ephemeris, but other aspects of using light.
Oh, Jim, I just want to thank you as an aspiring photographer for this tool. Okay, we talk about it in the green room in our practice run, and it really is amazing how you pinned down the minute that moon was going to be in the mitten. So it's like these shots that people are posting didn't just happen. It took a lot of planning, and I think that anyone listening here can now say, gosh, I could create that kind of work too. I just have to spend a little bit of time with my tools, and my odds are increased. So, yep. Jim, thank you so much. That really is something that I think everybody will be working with. And when we do the summary of the show, we will also post that website again so that anybody who's reviewing it. And so if you could put that for me, Jim, on the chat, then we'll make sure that that shows up in the summary. Sure. Thank you. So now we're going to introduce Mr. Ben from the Northwest. Do you have snow going on up there? We thought maybe this was Alien Abduction Tuesday. We're so happy to see you, Ben. And we'd love for you to introduce yourself so that people will know who you are, where they can find you.
There's no snow down here. Of course, when you go to the mountains, you know, about 60 miles to the east, I think they have somewhere over 100 inches of snow. The ski resorts are open, but I haven't been up there. So, hi everybody, my name is Ben. You can find my photos of all different genres right here on Google+. And if you're interested in more Pacific Northwest photography, you can follow my blog at pugetexposure.com, where I go out and I take road trips and I take pictures from various locations, and then I write a little bit about the history and how to get there and what time of day and seasons are best suited for that photography location. Today, my brief tip is on creating a photography plan for when you head out on a road trip. I posted a link to this template on my stream, and we'll also have it in the after show notes. So basically, if you take a road trip, be it for one day or multiple days, it's a good idea to leave some information behind with people that are not traveling with you. This is a form that you would fill out, and it has your name, your contact information, your make, color of your car, and there's a spot for you to enter people that are traveling with you and their cell phone numbers, where you're starting your trip, how long it's going to take, you know, do you have food for everybody, for how many days, and what kind of weather you have. Now, the reason behind this is, especially in the wintertime, as your trips take you into the rural areas, it's very easy to get stuck in a snowdrift or in a mud puddle or something like that. So by leaving this behind, in case you do not show up at home at the right time. People know generally where you were, and your family members they might not know exactly what kind of car you drive. So it's good to tell them that you're in a blue Ford. So when they do call the sheriff or the park ranger to go out and look for you, that they have the right vehicle in mind when they're doing their search areas. And then another tip I would do is I would bring along a piece of paper with important people's phone numbers written on it and leave that in your camera bag, because what can happen is your phone, your battery can die, and not too many people memorize people's phone numbers anymore. We're just using the phone book or the address book. So by having a analog version of your phone book, if your phone happens to die, you can still call somebody and let them know that you're just running a little bit late, and they're not going to come out and look for you.
Yeah, and Ben, that would be great for lost and found as well. If somebody finds your camera bag and you're not around, they can call somebody and figure out who it belongs to.
Yeah, if they're, I'm sure there's a few gentle souls out there that would do that. You could, sorry that I missed the first portion of it, but I'm sure Margaret touched on it. But you could also, you won't use this template, but it's also a good idea to write down a list of all your equipment and your serial numbers and leave that within the bag. Or have two copies. Keep one in your hotel room, keep one in your camera bag, so if something were to happen, you forgot something, you lost something, theft, or something broke, you would have a document saying that that is my serial number. So in case of theft, the police would enter that into a database. So like pawn shops and resellers, when they get a new item in, they have to cross-reference that with police reports. So, one of your lenses happens to disappear, and you think somebody may have swiped it. If you don't have the serial number or a photo of it, you're not going to be able to say that was mine. So having a list of your items with serial numbers is also a good thing to have. And you do it, this, you print out once. Obviously you're going to change the information, but you make your serial list one time. It takes you under an hour, and you can forget it. Of course, when you buy stuff, you have to go in and modify it. But in under 1 hour, you can get a peace of mind that at least you're set to go for this upcoming weekend. But it doesn't take that much time, and if something were to happen, you're going to, why didn't I take 10 minutes and write down my lenses and my camera body? Mm-hmm. So next time it's a rainy day, set aside half an hour to itemize all your things and write a list. You do it once, and you'll be set for the future.
Yeah. Great idea. Great.
Ben, thanks. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Ben, I think that it was wonderful tips you've had there, and I think something else that we talked about that I think is important is also taking the right equipment and planning for weather changes, because you live in an area, in a mountainous area. If you're going up, and in Colorado where I am now, the weather can change in 5 minutes. So if you're not taking that equipment with you, and you even had some cases, Ben, where people were actually killed. Did you want to share a little bit about preparing in that manner?
The story about Mount Rainier?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a series of, we have the Cascades, the northern Cascades up here, and they're very picturesque, and they're not too far away. So this happened a couple of years ago in the springtime. We're fairly mild up here. 68 is a hot day type of thing. And what happens a lot is that novice, inexperienced mountaineers decide to take a road trip to the mountain, And because they're not familiar with how fast, conditions change on a mountain, they're caught, at 4,000, 5,000 feet in jeans and a t-shirt. And it's happened quite a bit that people have not made it back down alive from the mountain because they just didn't have the right equipment and they weren't thinking in that frame of mind, so they weren't prepared. And all those things just combine, being a novice hiker, not being prepared, just sets you up for really bad results. So don't overstep your bounds. I know, like, we have amazing photographers that take, stunning snow landscaped images, but they're probably not doing it for the first time. To them, preparing their car and their jump bag and all their winterizing their gear and having the right clothing is second nature to these people because they've done it before. And there's no pressure to go out and put yourself in harm's way just to get a snow-laden lake or something like that. If you're uncomfortable, stay at home and do some research. Use Jim's photographer ephemeris and wait until springtime so you can scout. When the snow and ice has gone away, you can go up there in the summertime or springtime and just go out there and look for interesting locations and then come back to it when you're ready for it.
I think that's good. That you need to be prepared. And another time we'll talk about a survival kit just in your car for surviving when the weather changes. So, I'm just going to do some real logistics here of getting ready for that, the shoot. What do you do when you get there? And how are you going to find where you're going to park, and just some fun little things. And it's so interesting that we're all showing these Arizona shots today. But this is planning again at the Grand Canyon, and my quest was for lightning. So here is a parking lot, and this is not at Mather Point. Both Jim and Margaret were talking about that. And for those of you who are listening and want an insider tip, you'll have to talk to me offline of how you can get into these places and parking on your own, so you're not having to cart your equipment on the bus, because now you have to take all of your stuff on a bus and get off on different places unless you know another way to get around there. So here it was, trying to find, okay, here's a place with a bench. We're going to find that lightning. So we're scouting it out. And it's so funny, as we were practicing and Margaret was talking about the diaper bag. Now this is a Trader Joe recycle bag, and everything is in there. The umbrella, the poncho, it's all in there. And the most important, the lunch. Okay, so now here was a friend, and this is kind of a fun story. For those of you who are listening and have been participating in the landscape photography theme, Jim Golseth is living the dream of driving around the country in his RV, and he posts pictures from wherever he's parked that night. And we had talked a couple times on landscape photography. He had posted the most incredible picture of quartzite. Now, if you know anything about Arizona, quartzite is just like Kansas. It is in the middle of the desert, and literally hundreds of thousands of people park their RVs there and spend the winter. And Jim put this beautiful postcard, and I said, you need to sell that to the chamber. Anyway, we started a conversation, and I'm going to show this next picture, because there it is. We met up, just like I had mentioned. If you come to the Grand Canyon, I'll show you the ropes and we'll go find something. But this is how you connect on Google Plus with people. Now, it is a little bit weird for a woman to just say, do you want to come out and, do a hangout? So what happened was, he said he was in Flagstaff, so I invited him to meet my husband and I for lunch. And so then we decided, to meet and talk and everything, and you feel like, okay, this person's not gonna be too weird. So I asked Jim, and so he verifies now that no, I don't bite. So if you do call me, but when you have a partner, then you got somebody else who can take a picture of you doing your thing when you have a meetup. So then it's like, Margaret, we're trying to figure out what do we want to do? Do we want some greenery in it? Do I want to shoot through some wood to get my lightning? How about, we're going to frame it with some rocks? How are we going to do it? Well, no, maybe this is it. I'm looking here for the shot. And then there's some trees on the side. That doesn't quite do it. Now there it was. So all of that, getting ready, doing the recon, and we were waiting for the lightning. And it was so funny with Ben and both Jim. They're like, Cara, there's an app that you can buy for your lightning. No, I did not get the lightning shot. But that's how you go through it. And so I feel much better because that was my practice round. So, and then I would really like for you to share a little bit about the f-stop and the long.
Some good shots that way. And I know some others who have played around with capturing lightning with long exposures, stacking some dark lenses on your camera and going for a 15-second or 30-second shot, and then you're capturing whatever lightning appears on the horizon within that amount of time. And it's a technique. I've used that for fireworks displays in the summertime, and I don't go looking for lightning, so I don't have experience with that. I live in Missouri, which is next to Kansas, and we have tornadoes, so we don't go looking for lightning, when there's thunderstorms out.
Oops. And
You're
Kara's
muted.
audio is not coming through. I'll make a comment. Kara mentioned apps, and I in any case, when I get a good lightning storm, I plan to give it a try. And what it does is it just looks for that flash, the initial flash of light. When it sees it, it opens the shutter. So it doesn't rely on my reflexes to be fast enough to hit the shutter release.
There are some people that seem to be absolute experts at capturing those kinds of shots. I love seeing those in the landscape photography theme when they're posted.
Yep. And Kara is muted.
Can you put a note there in the chat?
Yeah, lightning is it's a scary thing because of all the power behind it, So out here in the Pacific Northwest, we don't often get air-to-ground lightning. We'll get we're up here in the convergence zone, so sometimes we'll have like cloud-to-cloud lightning, where instead of striking down, it strikes across.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could use, those apps use either PhotoSense, and there's other apps that are triggered with sound, but, everybody counts. So, like, the lightning happens, and then how far away are you from the storm? Well, that doesn't work well with a sound-activated app.
Yeah.
My
Well, good.
same thing with shooting fireworks. I would just use like an f8 and then on your barrel because there's no, you're doing this at night, so there's nothing to focus on. So generally, if you go into manual focus and you rack your focus ring all the way to infinity and then roll it back a quarter turn, you're at infinite focus. And then using your shutter release or your IR receiver, you take a 10-second exposure, and you're not trying to capture the initial strike. You're just hoping that within that 10 seconds something comes down. Now,
I
if you
think
want to isolate, one strike, it's not going to work. But this way, in one exposure, you can get multiple lightning bolts coming down.
Well, thanks, Ben. And I think this has been fun about working on planning. You can hear me now, right, guys?
Yes.
Okay. What happens is, for those of you who are watching, if you're having a hangout on air, it will happen. You will disappear, and all you have to do is come back and join the group, and they're all here. But when you come back in, you're automatically muted, so you have to unmute yourself so everyone can hear. So hopefully you're learning some tips and tricks from on Hangouts on Air. So as we're summarizing up, we want to thank you for supporting us and want to let you know that February 12th, we will be sharing on destination photography, where you're going. Maybe it's Fiji, maybe it's Egypt, maybe it's Colorado Springs. But now we're just letting you know it will be February 12th at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and we will be having extra guests. We've already been talking about on the 29th and different people. David Marks, some of you may know, a light room specialist. Bob Noble has been commenting on using Google Maps and some of the Google products to help on planning. So we're going to be inviting them. So you'll be seeing lots of different people showing up, sharing their expertise. And we are going to finish up today with our for suggested photographers, and then Jim Worthman has a wonderful tip to share for us at the end that will help you with your camera and equipment. So Margaret, we'll start with your suggested photographer to follow.
Thanks, Cara. Last week I recommended Steve Gould to you as a photographer to watch and follow. And so this week I'm going to recommend his brother, Jay. Jay is one of our newest curators at the landscape photography theme and a wonderful photographer. I'm sure that if you are participating in the theme, you've seen his work. He has several dozen photographs now that he has submitted to the Lightroom, which is a critiquing community, and that have survived the criteria. So his photographs are quite popular, and they're just are excellent work, and he's very interactive, and we are very, very pleased to have him as part of our landscape photography team. And I highly recommend Jay Gould to you as a photographer to take a look at his work, watch him, and circle him. You'll be glad that you did.
Oh, thanks, Margaret. And so we'll move right on to Jim.
And I'm going to show one piece from Christophe Fisher. And he's a pro and landscape travel photographer. He's based in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And he shoots just stunning landscapes of really a lot of different subjects. The Canadian Rockies, all the way down to nature reserves in South Africa. So he goes all over the world. Almost everything in his stream is his original photography. And he's only joined Google Plus last month. So he doesn't have that many followers yet. I'd encourage you to take a look, and if you like what you see, do circle him.
That's great. Ben?
All right, mine's going to be for Malaya Riordan. She's a photographer over the pond, over the big pond in the UK, and she's a quite talented photographer here. I'm going to see if I can screen share her thing real quick. She posts quite actively to the landscape forum, so she has she has access to interesting places in the UK, and I think she's definitely somebody you would want in your stream.
That's awesome. And I had mentioned and showed Jim Goldseth. Jim Goldseth, he's just a fun guy to know, and he takes some interesting photographs, and he gives a lot of history when he shares his photographs. So now we're going to close our show with Jim giving us the tip that will help save your equipment.
Yeah, so the theme of the show is planning for your shoot. And so those of you who wear glasses or know people who do, what happens when you go outside into really cold weather for a while and then come back inside? The lenses fog up.
Yeah.
Well, if you spend an hour or 3 out in that same cold weather shooting and come inside with your camera gear, the same thing happens. And cameras really don't like moisture. So there's a real cheap and easy solution. And I carry in my camera bag in the little zipper compartment a number of these large Ziploc style bags. And I have more than I need in case I need to share. But what I do is when I'm done shooting and packing my gear into my bag, I'll put the camera with lens attached into one of these bags, and this particular bag is huge. This is large enough to handle the camera and a long zoom lens. But I put the camera in the bag, push all the air out of it, maybe suck the air out. It's not helium, but it's close. And do that same thing for anything with glass, teleconverters, lenses, whatever. And then pack it away. When I take the bag inside, I open my camera bag up and let everything slowly warm up to room temperature. You get no condensation on your gear when you do that.
Well, thank you, Jim. It's so fun. Ben mentioned we seem to love plastic bags, and we sure do. So, they are our friends, that is for sure. And,
Cara, just another quickie, another great tip for cold weather. Keep your batteries on your body.
Oh, that's right.
So your spare batteries. Don't leave them in your bag. Put them in your pocket, just wherever they're close, and get your body heat on them, and they'll last just as long as they would on a nice day. But that has certainly worked for me when I've been 18 hours in an ice skating rink where it's very cold. The batteries have stayed good.
Excellent, Margaret. So we want to thank you for staying with us, and if you're watching and you have some comments or you have someone that you would like to suggest to come on one of our landscape photography shows, we're in the process of learning and appreciate your candid comments to help make it better. Any content that you would like to see that would help you with your photography, we're happy to listen to that too. And if you're willing to be a guest, let us know. And so we'll be signing off on episode 2, which was tips and tools and techniques to increase your odds of a better shot. And we will look forward to seeing you on Tuesday, February 12th, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and we'll be talking about destination photography. So thank you all for spending the evening with us, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Great. Bye-bye.
Bye.